He never expected that a single word or just one careless insult would cost him everything. The boardroom was tense, filled with polished mahogany tables, gleaming glasses of water, and the low hum of power radiating from men and women who measured their worth in billions. At the center of it all sat Richard Kane, a billionaire CEO whose name struck fear and admiration across Wall Street. His company was on the verge of securing a historic deal of $3.5 billion with an international defense conglomerate that would solidify his empire for decades to come. Cameras were ready, lawyers were waiting, and investors were holding their breath. But what no one knew was that in just a matter of minutes, arrogance would destroy everything. And it would begin with two words: "You're stupid." But before I tell you how a billionaire lost billions in an instant, stay with me until the very end, because the man he mocked, the single dad veteran he thought was nothing, will show you something that will leave your heart burning with both pain and pride. The story began on a stormy morning in New York City. Richard Kane arrived at his headquarters in a fleet of black SUVs, stepping out with the arrogance of a king returning to his throne. His tailored Italian suit gleamed under the city lights, his wristwatch alone worth more than most people's homes. His staff lined up to greet him, their smiles tight, their fear evident. They knew Kane's reputation: brilliant but brutal. He built his empire not through kindness, but through intimidation. Today was special. He was about to secure the $3.5 billion defense contract. Every news channel was waiting outside. Every shareholder's eyes were fixed on him. Failure wasn't an option. But in that same building, walking through the lobby with none of the flash or grandeur, was David Miller, a single dad, a combat veteran, and a man carrying scars that couldn't be hidden by his modest clothes. His jacket was worn, his shoes scuffed, but his back was straight and his eyes carried a depth that came only from seeing the edge of life and returning. He wasn't supposed to be there as a guest of honor. He wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful. He was there as a consultant to one brought in reluctantly, almost as a joke, by a member of the defense team. He had served overseas, saved lives under fire, and had experience with military technology that textbooks couldn't teach. But in Kane's world, men like David were invisible. The meeting began with all the pomp and arrogance of billionaires flexing their egos. Richard Kane stood at the head of the table, delivering a speech about innovation, progress, and securing the future of warfare. His words were slick, his voice confident, and his smile calculated. Every executive in the room nodded along, fearful of crossing him. The defense conglomerate's representatives listened carefully, their faces unreadable. This deal would mean billions for Kane, but it also meant global security. Mistakes were not an option. Then, quietly, David raised his hand. His voice was calm but firm. He pointed out a flaw in the design Kane had just boasted about. It wasn't in the numbers on paper, but in the reality of combat. "This looks good in a boardroom," David said, his voice steady, "but out there, in the dust and blood, it'll fail. Soldiers will pay the price. You're designing for profit, not survival." The room froze. Kane's jaw tightened. No one interrupted him. And certainly not some nobody in a second-hand suit. He stared at David, his lips curling into a smirk. Then he laughed. Not a small laugh, but a booming, mocking roar that filled the room with poison. "Are you serious?" Kane sneered. "Who even let this guy in here? Look at you, you're nothing. You're stupid. A stupid, washed-up veteran who doesn't understand real business. This is a $3.5 billion deal, not some bedtime story about your glory days in the sand." Gasps filled the room. A couple of executives looked down, ashamed but too scared to speak. Kane leaned closer across the table, jabbing a finger toward David. "Stupid. That's all you are. Stupid. But here's the thing about arrogance, it blinds." While Kane was busy humiliating a man he thought was beneath him, he didn't notice the stony expressions on the faces of the defense conglomerate's delegation. They weren't impressed by Kane's theatrics. They were appalled. Because David Miller wasn't just some random consultant. They knew exactly who he was. He had served alongside some of their own men overseas. He had saved lives that money could never buy back. He wasn't just respected in military circles, he was revered. And now, in front of everyone, Kane had mocked him. One of the defense executives cleared his throat. "Mr. Kane," he said coldly, "I believe we've seen enough." Kane blinked, confused. "Enough? We haven't even finalized it." The man cut him off. "We don't do business with people who disrespect the very men who give us the right to sit here in peace. You mocked a veteran, a father, a man of honor.